everybody. Great to be here at this event, awesome event in Budapest. Really happy to see you all. So when I had to come up with a way to start this presentation, immediately a bunch of really bad dad jokes about the word safe came to mind. And I went through them in my head and tried them out, and they were all really, really unfunny. So in the end of the day, I decided to keep it a little bit more conservative, not go with any of these and, you know, play it safe, you could say. Okay, that one was really bad. I'm sorry, you just noticed that one. So today's topic is how to simplify your safe transformation in Jira with Agile Hive. And before I go into the actual topic, is anyone here not familiar with the word safe and the safe framework? Please raise your hand. I can barely see it, so I guess you're all familiar with it. In case anyone isn't, the safe framework, just briefly, is a way of scaling the team agility that Scrum offers to enterprise scale. So let's say you're a large company, you have 500 or 1,000 developers, they're all working on the same product. You need to align them to a single vision. How do you make sure that they are all the dependencies that you have, if you have more than one team that's working on a feature, are taken into account? That's basically what SAFe does at scale. So a little bit about me first. My name is Karl Baumgarten. I've been at Seibert Media for the last 3.5 years now. We're one of the largest Atlassian partners in the German-speaking region, so the DACH region, and also the developers of Agile Hive. And as a SAFe program consultant over the last few years, I've worked with a bunch of different companies that are in their transformation phase, from your typical Agile development with Scrum to Scaled Agile development with SAFe. And one thing that we saw those companies always struggling with is finding the right tooling. So why especially this is so hard is because there's a huge gap when you're in your SAFe transformation. So on the one side, you have your existing tooling, which is most oftentimes Jira. You know, your developers love it, it's already in place, it's already configured. But Jira has certain limitations when it comes to scaling Agile to enterprise level. On the other hand, you now have the SAFe framework, which is super powerful, but at the same time, it's super complex. So how do you bring those two worlds together? How do you enable the right tooling for SAFe? Well, without Agile Hive, you would actually have two options. Option A would be to ditch Jira and switch to a completely different tool, which you probably don't want to do because Jira is already the trusted tool, your developers love it, you have all your past data there, all your sprints there. And besides that, you would probably look at a huge migration project to switching to a new software, right? You probably at least half a year, dozens of man hours, a lot of money as well. So that's not really a viable option. Option B would be to ditch the SAFe framework and just stick with the existing Scrum, which is already not really an option for enterprises at that scale because Scrum just can't cope with the complexity anymore. So how do you do that? How do you actually close that gap? The problem here is if you would ditch the SAFe framework, you would not make benefit of all these big advantages here. So people that implemented SAFe, especially enterprises, reported up to 50% increase in happiness and motivation in employees, up to 50% increase in productivity, and even 75 or up to 75% increase in improvements in quality as well as faster time to market. So who wouldn't want that, right? So you might be asking, why exactly just can't we stick with Jira and configure that in Jira? Well, Jira is super powerful. I think we all know that here. It offers a lot of flexibility. But the whole concept of SAFe is built around having a hierarchical structure where you can group development teams into agile release trains, into arts, group then those arts again into what's called solution trains, and maybe at a portfolio level on top to align your company's vision and execution. You can't really do that in Jira since there's just one layer, and that's the Jira projects. Besides that, there are no SAFe artifacts in Jira. Everything's named differently. For example, SAFe calls sprints iterations for a reason that I haven't figured out until today. There are no PIs in Jira, which stand for program increment, so it's the heartbeat of SAFe, where you group a couple of iterations into a program increment, a feature release cycle. There's no WSJF, the weighted shortest job first, the SAFe own prioritization metric. You can't visualize dependencies between teams. There are no SAFe reportings. And if you still want to go with standard Jira and keep everything the way it is, you can do that partly, but that requires extensive configuration, which means that it's not really a scalable way. And besides that, of course, you wouldn't have any support for your tooling. So this is why we have developed Agile Hive. Agile Hive, in the end of the day, is an app extension for your existing Jira that you can just install on top, and it adds all of the relevant things that SAFe requires out of the box and pre-configured, which means that you can stick with your existing tooling while also being able to close the gap to the methodical framework. It's super easy to set up and means that your teams can start with their first PI planning within just a few days. Of course, Agile Hive is not the only way to implement SAFe with Atlassian tools. With Jira Outline, Atlassian actually have their own solution for that, but their approach is completely different, which is why we can't really compare the two. For example, everything about Jira Outline is targeted towards handling the complexity of the SAFe framework. It's a standalone software that attaches to one or more of your Jiras or also external sources and aggregates the data. It's cloud first. It's framework flexible, so you can also use it for other frameworks besides SAFe. And it's really strategy focused, meaning that it's best suited for a top-down approach and offers huge flexibility on portfolio management level. On the other hand, Agile Hive is all about simplification of SAFe. So it's really targeted towards SAFe, and it's an app for Jira, which means that it's not as flexible when it comes to other frameworks and not as powerful. But if you want to do SAFe, it's super easy to set up, and there's basically no faster way of getting started. Everything stays inside of your Jira instance, and our big thing is to make everything as easy as possible. And to be honest, we have both customers that are either using Jira Line or Agile Hive, and we never ran into the situation where it wasn't instantly clear after the first few meetings which one would be the better fit for their requirements. So without further ado, let's actually dive into the product and see how it works. So we have prepared a system here, which is basically a Jira where we have Agile Hive installed. And the first thing that we added are the project hierarchies, which are the centerpiece of Agile Hive. Here you can define your SAFe configuration. In this case, we have a full SAFe, meaning that we have all the available layers in the SAFe framework. And then you can go ahead and add your different teams, group them together into Agile release trains, and group them, for example, together, if needed, into solution trains, and have a portfolio level on top if needed. All of these elements are individual Jira projects which allow for full flexibility on all those levels. So for example, if a team says they want to have a different workflow, they want to have a separate board, or maybe want to allow access to external users, they don't have to compromise for what the other teams want. It's basically everything you need to do in terms of setup. If you want to add new teams, for example, to this hierarchy, you can also use the Agile Hive project templates which come pre-configured with all the right fields, workflows, and also some extra views that are necessary for SAFe. If you have existing projects, Jira projects, you can easily migrate them into those SAFe projects. So let's jump into, for example, the art Wiesbaden, which is one art in our SAFe configuration. And here we can see we are in a running PI, which is indicated by all the metrics that we have here. We can see who is actually part of this art, how our progress is, our velocity, and our most important SAFe metrics, what features will be delivered by the end of this PI. And from here we can also track our PI objectives as well as our risks for this PI. From this central level, we can also plan feature delivery on a program roadmap view, where we can add milestones and visualize dependencies, or we can see those dependencies on our program board, where you can also see what influences or is critical for the delivery of a feature, indicated by lines that are either green for non-critical dependencies, red for critical ones, or yellow for dependencies that are at risk. From this level, you can centrally also create new PIs, which then will appear on the team views. So for example, let's go one level below. We're now in the art level. Let's go down to the team level. And as soon as the PI starts, the team can go into their breakout sessions and actually start planning their work. So they can set their capacity for each individual iteration, and they can easily commit to features from the program backlog by dragging them onto their breakout board like this, and then breaking them down into individual user stories, estimating those user stories with story points, while also taking into account other dependencies to external teams. Like, for example, we have a team 3D artists, which are also working on other user stories that are important for the ones that we are working on. In the running PI, with this overview right here, the teams have all their most important metrics in one view where they can see what exactly they need to work on in this iteration, what's their current velocity, capacity, and business value delivered, as well as manage their PI objectives or team objectives in that case, as well as the team risks. So if grouping together teams into agile release trains is not enough, you can also add a solution train on top and group those arts into a solution train again. And in principle, it's the same thing here, right? So the data gets aggregated into the solution train. You have an overview about what capabilities are being worked on, and so on. So if aligning everyone and portfolio management is a huge priority for you, you can still add a portfolio level on top. And one thing that I can show you here, which is a personal favorite of mine of the software, is that on this portfolio level, we have an overview of all the portfolio epics that we are working on. And we have also implemented with Agile Hive a automatic documentation functionality for your Confluence if there's one attached. Everything so far is in Jira. In this case, we can also attach Confluence. I showed that yesterday in a quick talk already. So let's say we have a new initiative in our company. So let's say we have a big new initiative. So we are creating an issue type of the type portfolio epic. Let's assign this one to Laura. She should work on that one and also set Laura as the epic owner. Can then create a few values here, which are used for the WSJF. These are the metrics that we are going to use with SAFe for the prioritization of that portfolio epic. And once I click create, so far nothing out of the ordinary, I've just created a new issue here. And if I go into the issue, you can actually see that here's a Confluence link that is all automatically set. And in this case, we said, okay, well, the people that are actually responsible for the big initiatives in the company, and they want to see what's going on, what's the status quo, they are mostly not working in Jira, right? They want like a well-looking or beautiful-looking PowerPoint presentation or something like that. So we said, okay, for them, they don't have to go into Jira where there are thousands of comments and everything. They can just go onto that Confluence page, which we generated automatically, that includes all the relevant information for that company initiative on a pre-layouted and beautifully looking Confluence page, documentation page, that's also labeled the right way, has a certain title, and then is saved in the space epic rooms. You can use it like that, but there are also other ways to do this. For example, if you're having a new PI planning, you can have one page per PI where you say which teams are working on this PI, which features will most likely be delivered, and what are the most important PI objectives. So everything so far was the on-premise version for Agile Hive. We have it developed for server and data center. Of course, since destination cloud is here, we're also working on a cloud version for Agile Hive, which will come later this year. Here we already teased it with a few screenshots. It will have a lot of extra functionality, will look great, and will even be 5 times better than what I've shown you today. So if you have any questions about that, if you want to know something else, we would be welcome to welcome you at our booth, at our Agile Hive booth. Thank you so much for your attention and wish you all a great rest of the event.